go, guys. If you find that you are a frustrated foodie instead of a happy foodie when it comes to making your own pastries, I'm going to share my favorite pastry recipe with you today. Now, it's really quick and easy, and it is going to be very glamorous, and you can use it as many times as you want, and it is quite versatile. So you can change the flavors and change what you use it with. Now, to make this really decadent, what I'm using is some cream cheese. Now, cream cheese will give it that beautiful, we're also using butter, but the cream cheese makes it the ultimate in pastries. I'm also using my little food processor or a blender. You can, of course, do this by hand, but this is quick and simple, and I can do it in under a minute. So what we've got here is 200 grams of plain flour. So I'm going to use a plain flour today instead of a baker's flour because we want to keep that pastry nice and short. So we don't want something with a high protein content. I've got 125 grams of ice cold butter there. And of course, just half a block of your normal cream cheese. Now, that is really very low maintenance. This will never stress you out. And of course, we can make this just before we need it, or we can put it in the fridge to relax, and you can use it the next day or even 2 days later. Now, this is where we can make this really exciting. So depending on what your filling is going to be, you can really pimp up your pastry and do all sorts of glamorous things with it. For example, black pepper and basil would be a beautiful accompaniment to any sort of beef filling. If you're doing a pastrami or a roast, rare roast beef, if we're doing anything fishy like a smoked salmon or a salmon pate, we could then add a little bit of lemon zest and perhaps dill into the pastry to make it match our fish dish. Also, by telling your lovely guests what you put into the pastry will make them more excited about it, and they will be much more excited about it if you tell them what you put into there. So I always make it sound more expensive, use all the big chefy words, and I always let them know what hero ingredients I have put into there. The other ingredients that you could put into here would maybe be the edible petals or something like that, but I think it's glamorous enough as it is. Let's blend this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend it for about 2 to 3 minutes until it comes together in nice little breadcrumbs, so that when I push it together, it's going to give us that lovely stable pastry, and then we can either roll it out or press it out. It's very easy, guys. So guys, that took about 2 minutes, and what happens is with that lovely metal blade, it'll actually warm the butter up ever so slightly and then make it a little bit wetter. And what I'm looking for is that lovely crumble that look how beautiful that is. And when I squeeze it with my hands, it makes the shape that I squeeze it into. Now, at this stage, a lot of people get terribly stressed when we say roll out the dough. A nice, quick and easy way to do it is if you're going to roll it in between 2 of these plastic sheets, because it'll really just squish out and you'll be able to cut it with a cookie cutter or whatever you like. I am even a step lazier than that, and I just take my time, and taking that blade out, I'm using one of these little silicone tart shells, which you can get generally online or at one of your little hospitality or kitchen shops. And then all I'm doing is with my thumbs, I'm just really pushing that out, keeping it nice and even. And the heat of my thumbs will actually help to mold this into my little silicone tart shell. Now, these are my favorite little tart shells. I've had these for about 9 years. You can, of course, use your little quiche tray or anything like that would be absolutely perfect. So once I've pushed it in and it's nice and even, all I'm going to do is, using a nice sharp knife, is just cut that off so they're nice and neat and sexy. And then all I need to do is bake these in an oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. And I'm going to go at a temperature of between 180 and 190 for that. Generally, you should rest this pastry in the fridge for about 10 to 20 minutes. It just gives a better chance of not shrinking when we cook it. And that's all we need to do there. And of course, with pastries, we do like to bake blind, which means weighing down that pastry so that in the oven, when that steam tries to escape, we've got a lovely flat surface at the end when we have it on the plate and we are just about to eat it. So you can buy these little baking pearls, and they literally just go into that pastry like that. They're very easy to take out afterwards. Just make sure, because they'll be very hot. And all we need to do is bake that. So other than pressing out that dough, let me show you how easy it is to roll this dough out. So you do the way you choose. I'm a bit lazier. I just don't mind pressing it out. But sometimes you want a neater dough, and that's what we'll get if we roll the dough out. So I've got these beautiful little plastic boards. You can, of course, use a sheet of cling film underneath there, some plastic wrap. So a little bit of flour down there, and that's just the rest of our dough out of our food processor. I'm just going to bring it together into a little dough ball, and then all I'm going to do is just hand shape it just so it's a little bit flatter, so it's easier for me to roll just like that. A little bit of flour on top. Flour is your friend. It'll make sure that that dough does not stick to everything, because it's very stressful when you've got it super thin and it's starting to stick to your sheets of paper. So nice and easy, just even rolling, so don't be too violent with it. And I'll show you as we're going down that it's just really smashing it flat, and we can get a lovely, very thin result here. And you can change the thinness or thickness depending on what you're actually making with this. So obviously, with a very delicate little tart, we might want a thinner pastry, but if you're doing like a party pie or something like that, this will work really well with any of your pulled pork or pulled beef, or you can even do like a cheese and onion party pie, and this dough would go really well with that as well. So just rolling it out, keep working that dough until it is perfectly thin. And then we're going to use either a scone cutter or whatever you have. I'm just using one of my stacking rings, and it's basically just so that you can get the same size as what your little silicone tart shell is. Also, some of the little pastries that I've already put in, if you are too lazy to bake it blind, I totally respect that, because sometimes I don't bother either. What will happen though when we put them in the oven is the pastry will obviously try and make a little dent because of the steam escaping, and that really does work to weigh that down. But if you are very cheeky and lazy like I am, what you can do is, as they come out and they're still very hot and malleable, is I just persuade it back down with the back of a soup ladle. So that's a lovely lazy trick if you don't want to spend all that time putting the little baking beads in the dough and then taking it out again. Also works very well with a sugary dough, and you could of course add some sugar to this if you wanted it for a sweeter dish. So we've got that rolled nice and thin. It comes off very easily with that flour over there, and it is actually loose over there. So this could then be placed over a bigger, so if you didn't have the small little tart shells like I do, and you've got a traditional bigger tart shell, you would obviously use all of the dough. I've taken some already to put into the oven, but all we do then is cut that out into the required size. And there we have it, guys. Aren't they gorgeous? So these smell absolutely heavenly, guys, and they got just a little bit of golden brown to them. And what I did when they came out, and they weren't quite, the ones I didn't blind bake, because like I said, you might be too lazy to do that, and I totally respect that. It's just that little soup ladle at the end, and it will help that to go down. But it has to be done while it's hot still. Now, what we're going to do at this stage, this is the perfect thing for entertaining, because you can create any little tart that you would like using leftovers out the fridge. So you can obviously design something in particular, but I just happen to have some butternut flesh, so roast pumpkin, roast butternut, anything like that. You could have a pulled pork or anything like that to put into there. But I'm going to do a nice quick cold one. And to get that butternut flesh, I always like to show you, this doesn't look very glamorous. This is the whole butternut. And what I did was I actually just stabbed it like 3 times and then put it into the microwave. Now that was done yesterday. As you can see, I can touch it, but it is completely cooked. So into the microwave for 10 or 12 minutes in its skin, just like it is on a plate. And we can actually just take the lid off, scoop out the flesh, and you've got some instant butternut. That's great for if you are doing a soup or anything like that. And that's the laziest way to prepare a butternut pumpkin. Now, for this lovely dish over here, what we're going to do is into that we are going to do some of the butternut flesh. Now that can, like I said, can be roasted, and that's going to be a nice base. So we want something quite moist in there so that it's got a beautiful flavor when we bite through into it, but not just butternut on its own, because obviously that would be baby food. So what we're going to do then is I've got lovely little goat's cheese balls. Now goat's cheese is fabulous. It's salty, it's creamy, and you can say goat's cheese balls, so it makes it sound very extravagant. What I'm doing is I'm just pulling off some little dill fronds. I'm going to take some lavender petals, put that into there. So I'm trying to create some color. I'm trying to make these little goat's cheese balls look very glamorous indeed. So I always resort to either something like black pepper or something that'll really stick on the crust there. Even pistachios would be fabulous. It just depends on what you're making. I'm even going to go for a little bit of raw onion. In goes our little goat's cheese ball. Give them a little shake, shake, shake around the plate there. And voila, he looks very gorgeous. On he goes over there. And then I'm going to take some of this little bit of prosciutto that I have got over the prosciutto high heel. So he is going to become one of the components on our lovely dish. And last but not least, some of this fabulous ash brie. So this is a lovely ash brie. You can see that ash vein going through there. I'm going to make a sexy little triangle that is going to stand up over there and really pop out with some personality. And that is as easy as it is, guys. One last thing on there to bring it all together is, of course, I've got some cream and some mustard here. And all I'm going to do is drizzle that dramatically around there so it looks $10 more expensive. And of course, edible petals. And we are done, guys. Please try these at home. You'll be surprised at how easy it is. Enjoy!